All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to the online team. So ours was tackling on ease of operations. Okay. All right. I don't know if everyone is seeing, but it's okay. It's okay. All right. So we identified, first of all, we identified 5 barriers. Number 1 being, for ease of operations, you're looking in terms of regulation and also operations. So number 1, what we looked into is intellectual property. There's an issue of intellectual property in regards to the knowledge, like what is a copyright, what is a patent. If I have a carving, or probably if I have a painting, do I consider it as a copyright? Do I consider it as a patent? That kind of education is lacking, and somehow entrepreneurs find it hard to, secure their IP. By IP I mean intellectual property, because that's still value, that's an asset. The solution that you proposed was there needs to be increased education from both the agencies that do the registration and also the ESOs, because the ESOs can also act as agencies that offer that kind of education, including ASSEK, because the entrepreneurs are everywhere. They're not just in Nairobi, but also there's someone who is in the grassroots. Someone has a very good invention, but they don't know what to consider it as. They don't know if it's a patent or a copyright. So that kind of education is really important, because it increases awareness. And even we had argued on the fact that, even when you register your company or business at BRS, you don't get any information regarding what to do with a copyright or a trademark. Their business ends at the registration desk. Once you've registered your company or business, that's it. It's up to you. The next barrier was on taxation. This was very heavy. It took a lot of time. Part of the reason for this one was, number 1, there is random taxation, very ad hoc. It could be political, it could be out of pressure, we don't know. But at times you find certain taxes that have just come out of nowhere. At times people go to court. You're in a country where people love going to court. So you don't know whether to pay the tax, wait for the court ruling, or continue paying the tax. It becomes a bit confusing, and that kind of knowledge is not there. Recently we also saw the rollout of Teams. They tried pushing for the e-Teams, the electronic tax invoicing. But the problem was the uptake was really low. I guess they say it's something to do with 30% compared to the potential taxpayers that they would have registered. So for that, we are suggesting there needs to be, number 1, you need to find ways of reducing the tax burden. Because if you are very observant, for those who deal with micro SMEs, there's an apathy towards still numbers. And there's a reason for that. There's been increased taxation on M-Pesa transactions. And for most of the mamambogas, or the people who are selling mahindi choma or mutura, nowadays, yesterday they told you lipa kwa till number, but today they're telling you send money, because it's increasing a cost. It's affecting their margins because of those taxations. Because imagine you're in an environment whereby you're paying tax on airtime, you're paying tax on internet. Those are your inputs for your business. You end up still paying more taxes when you're transacting. So in a way, it also affects your cost of doing business. So we lobby that, we need to reduce the tax burden. Number 2, tax education. It needs to be simplified. Nowadays we have Gen Z who are doing business. Gen Z are not used to reading 40-page books. They can't read those acts and all that. But there needs to be a way in which you can simplify. Either do animations, you can do infographics. Infographics are very easy to explain. Something that's easily understandable even to the Gen Z for the future taxpayers. Number 3 is in terms of demographics and positioning. There's a big complaint in regards to county government. Whenever you're doing trade, trade is inter-county. If you are buying your maize from Kitale and probably moving it to Nairobi, the amount of cess that you're paying from each county is very high. By the time your goods reach Nairobi, you don't even know what price you're going to price your goods at, because the amount of taxes that you've paid are too much, aside from KRA. Our suggestion is there needs to be a standardized way of, doing those kind of levies at county level. It doesn't have to be that exorbitant to the business person. The 4th one is political influence. This one is very heavy because of vested interests. It depends with the government of the day. Political influence mostly affects, I would say probably if there's a law that has come up, the enforcement. Number 1 is enforcement. Number 2 is in terms of execution. There's a reason why you're finding most businesses do not want to formalize. There's a big reason. Number 1 being taxation, because they believe, once I put everything on paper, KRA is on my neck. There's that fear. The second fear is government knows what I'm doing. So I'd rather lay low, do my biashara, put my money in the mattress. But now what you're lobbying for is we need, I don't know how to put it, but we need more of less political influence, because at times we're in an environment where government is also competing with the private sector, mostly when it comes to access to credit. So we need to find a way in which probably we lobby for politicians not to be in business. They need to be in the business of, safeguarding the law, whereas us in private sector work towards creating employment, which I know is a far-fetched idea. The next one is branding costs. For branding costs, also this one touches on the licensing. There are multiple licenses and there are multiple institutions that you're dealing with. By the time you're going to community to do your registration, then come back to Upper Hill to find out which permit you need to pay. Then you're sent back to Huduma Center, who sends you back to community because the person who is serving there is not there. So in terms of, there needs to be that kind of harmonization. Our solution is we are requesting for harmonization. If there's a permit that caters for everything. I know Nairobi County was trying that. I don't know if it's still on, but it has to be across all the counties. Like once I've paid for my permit, it covers for the music copyright, it covers for the health insurance, it covers for the health certificate, it covers even for my branding and signage. I don't need to keep bribing kanjos because I have my permit, but I don't have a signage permit. So I have to keep bribing, which increases the cost of business and which becomes too cumbersome. And then if we move on to the next one, Prudence, kindly. For the ESOs, because we noticed it touches on both on government and ESOs. So for the ESOs, still on the part of copyright, we were suggesting ESOs can act as a go-between between the government and also its agencies as well as its entrepreneur members. Government may not be in a position to go to every county and talk about copyrights, intellectual properties, but I believe ESOs have an access to government. Government can train the ESOs, who in turn train the entrepreneurs on their rights when it comes to IP. The second one, which was touching on tax education, is still the same. ESOs should become an enabler, a knowledge sharing enabler for the entrepreneurs. Because you're dealing with entrepreneurs who come from very different backgrounds, geographical backgrounds. Some of them have no idea on what is required when it comes to compliance. If there's a simplified way in which I hear now e-citizen could be translated to Sheng, I don't know how true that is, but it's a good move. Because, at times the technical jargon can turn people off and it creates a sense of ignorance. So if there's a way in which the ESOs can work together with government, because ESOs have a more wider reach because they are spread out geographically. So that kind of partnership needs to come out strongly. And then the other one that we are suggesting is the compliance procedures. What do I need to be compliant? Keep it simple. As I mentioned, either do it via video, short form content, things that can be shared on TikTok. We have a group that is heavy on TikTok. By the time you're telling them to go to the government registrar, do the public printer, they don't have that time. Because those are bulky documents, but they need a simplified way of understanding what do I need to do to be compliant. Then certification standards as well. And these certification standards you are speaking in regards to the ESOs. Because right now ESOs are not, I don't think they're standardized, I don't think they're regularized. So I can wake up today and also say that I'll open an incubation hub, but I don't know what standards are required to register that incubation hub. Perhaps I want to register it in a different county. But all I need to do is maybe come up with a fancy name, look for a free open space and say this is a co-working space, but I don't know which standards I'm following. You see, like the hotels usually have standards when it comes to 5-star, 3-star and all that. There needs to be a level of standardization and also regulation in terms of what's required. What check boxes do I require to tick off? Then also having a unified license that also can be in partnership with the ESOs. Probably, through discussion and through training, entrepreneurs can approach the ESOs to guide them on licensing. Because I believe ESOs have they have the lawyers, they have the professionals, and they have the trainers. Yes, and that's it. Thank you very much, Prudence. Thank you very much, Group 2, for praying for me. Asante kwa maombi.